Welcome to the Finding the Magic podcast, where books come alive. I'm Tricia Copeland, a fiction author and host of this show. If you love books, finding great reads, and hearing about the story behind the story directly from the authors, this is the place for you. Whether you like fantasy, science fiction, dystopian, or romance titles, I think you'll find something to love in my playlist. Listen in to discover something magical about a book or two today.
Welcome, Edward.
Oh, thank you for having me back.
Yes, we talked in May about Shapers of Worlds, correct?
Shapers of Worlds, Volume 5, yes.
Volume 5. Wow. Yeah, and with a number of authors, all science fiction, right?
Yeah, they all came out of my podcast, people that I'd interviewed when it was focused only on science fiction, fantasy. Now I talk to people in other genres as well. And I kickstarted 5 of them in a row, but that will be the last one. So it was exciting. 5 seemed like a good number to wrap up with. And because the podcast has changed focus a bit, that just seemed to be a good place to call it a set. Over 100 authors, though.
I mean, right. I was going to say, that's a lot of organization there and a lot of work on your part.
Yeah, it was the first one especially. There's a bit of a learning curve to climb to do a Kickstarter, and but all 5 of them succeeded. So I guess I did something right.
Well, congratulations. But I hear you have a new release.
Yes, I do. This is actually my own book because I am, even though I'm publishing through Shadowpaw Press tons of books, I am primarily a writer. And I finally, for the first time in about 2 years now, I have a new one out. It's, look, I happen to have a copy right here. Fireboy. It's a middle grade, young adult fantasy novel, modern day fantasy novel. Yeah, I'm very excited to have that out. It was being considered by another publisher, and they seemed interested in it, but it took them so long to decide that in the interim, I built my own publishing company, and I decided, well, I'm just going to put it out because I can't wait for them anymore. So it came out from Shadowpaw Press a month ago, I guess, a little over a month ago.
Congratulations. Set up the story, tell us about the characters.
Well,
tell us everything.
Fireboy, the main character, it's a first-person narrative. The main character who's narrating it is a 13-year-old girl named Samantha McCready, Sam for short. And she's a little concerned about starting grade 8 because back in grade 7, at the end of the last school year, her entire science class disappeared while on a field trip, except for the teacher and one girl. They were on a bus going up for an astronomy session up on a mountain. This is set in the foothills of Alberta. And the bus was found turned over on its side. The teacher was unconscious, still in the driver's seat, and this other girl was buried in camping equipment at the back. Nobody knows what happened to them. No sign of anything. Nobody can figure it out. So yeah, she's a little verklempt about that, and so she's out camping with her father. Her father thought maybe they could bond while camping, but it's raining, so she's miserable there too. And then all of a sudden, her best friend Lorenzo, who disappeared on that trip, shows up as a face in the campfire and talks to her, and that kind of freaks her out. And then he shows up again. His whole body, as you can see on the picture here, on the cover. This cover art, by the way, is by a Regina artist here in my own town of Regina.
Oh, neat. Yeah, it's really good.
He shows up all made out of fire and says, "I'm somewhere, I don't know where. And I can turn into fire, but my body is being held prisoner, and all the other kids are here too, and you've got to help us." And that sets up the story. So she has to figure out what happened to all the other kids, who's behind it all, and she joins forces with that other girl who she's not really friends with before, but they're thrown together by this, who was found unconscious in the back of the bus, and they set out to figure out exactly what the heck is going on. And they have to end up saving their friends from magical enslavement, to put it in a nutshell.
Wow, that's a lot. It's funny because I first heard the title, I thought Fireboy, and a little while back, I can't remember the name of the book, but there's this girl that catches on fire. Like it's a...
Oh, Firestarter. Maybe. The Stephen King novel.
No, it's not. It's more like a literary fiction novel that's, yeah, I'll have to look it up again. But
I have seen a couple of other books using that title, but titles are up for grabs. So
I don't remember what the title was, but it's not entitled that. It's just about a kid that catches on fire. Anyway, so it's not that. Then
that's good.
The person is in the fire, or she can see her friend in the fire, I guess.
Yes, and yeah, that's why it's called Fireboy, because he's the inciting incident, as we like to say in writer speak, uh,
Right.
is when he shows up in the campfire. Because the first sentence is, uh, well, I like the first sentence. It's, I knew things were getting weird when, let's see, I'll read it exactly. It starts with, I knew things were getting weird when I saw my best friend's face in the campfire. I didn't realize how weird until the campfire followed me home. That's the openings.
That's awesome. And how did you decide to place this in that middle grade? I guess it's more than middle grade because is it middle grade? I don't know.
Yeah, I would call, I mean, younger, I mean, I'm sure
Younger way. Yeah.
14-year-old could enjoy it too. The girl is 13. Um, but you know, kids tend to read a little older. So I'm
Right.
sure it's like 10 to 13 or 10 to 14 is kind of the age group that you put it in the metadata when you're publishing it. Um, I don't know. It just um, it's now been, because it was with another publisher for a couple of years, it's now been so long since I wrote it. I don't even remember what the impetus was for writing it, except that I wanted to write fantasy because I hadn't for a while, and I wanted it to be for young people. And I'm not sure even why I decided to make it 13. If I'd made them older, it would have been probably a much darker story than it is. And the original version was actually darker than this. There was a bit more um, horror elements to it. But the publisher that was looking at it actually asked me if I would rewrite it and tone that down a bit, which I did. And I've kept that version now for the version that actually came out. Um, but if I'd been writing it for like 17-year-olds, well, it would have been a much, much darker story
Right.
than it actually turned out to be.
Well, so can you give us any hints about what kind of magic is that going on
Oh,
in
well,
it?
yeah,
Or
it's elementals is what's going on. It's elemental
okay.
magic. So you got fire, air, water, and earth, right? And the kids are being turned into these elementals for nefarious purposes, and that's why her friend Lorenzo has turned up as a fire boy. And yeah, it's all about elemental magic. And Paracelsus makes an appearance, the famous alchemist who kind of wrote about this kind of stuff. It was fun researching it as well, and the kids research it as well. There's a whole funny scene where they're trying to Google what they've overheard, and they can't. What's a pair of Chelseas? I don't understand. And they keep getting these weird search results until they finally kind of figure out what's going on. So I
Oh,
had a
that's a
lot of
lot of
it's a very
fun.
humorous book in many
Mhm.
ways.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like something I could read and feel much lighter afterwards.
It was fun, and I can't help, even my darkest novels, that might have a lot of terror and horror, and my adult novels, they still have humor in them because that's just the way my brain works. If I can sneak in a bit of wordplay or something, then I'll almost always go for it.
That's amazing. Yeah, so this is a republication of a prior book then.
No, no, this one's brand new. This one's never
Oh,
been
okay.
published before. Yeah.
Oh,
It's just
okay.
that another publisher was looking at it and they took so long to decide. I withdrew it and decided I'd bring it
Oh,
out myself because Shadowpaw Press is now, has proper distribution right across the country and through a Disco Literary Distribution Company, one of Canada's major distribution uh, companies. And I'm a member of Literary Press Group. I'm a member of the Association of Canadian Publishers. I'm a proper publisher.
wait, yeah, no, I knew that. Sorry. I didn't mean to like say, yeah, no, yeah, because I think I saw you publish over 60 books. Is that correct?
Well, I've written over 60 books.
Written over 60.
Actually
Okay.
published, I haven't counted recently. It must be about 35, maybe, through Shadowpaw Press. Some of which, especially in the early going, I was focused on reprinting some of my novels that had gone, the publisher had gone away and the rights reverted to me. So I brought them out in new editions. And I've got more of that to do in the future. But then at some point I started publishing other authors. And last year, even though it's just me and the cat, I think I put out 20 books, which is actually ridiculous for one man and a cat to try to
I
do in a
was
year.
going to say, yeah, are you the editor too?
Mostly, yeah. A couple of them were edited by freelancers, but mostly it's me, yeah.
That's a lot of work. And I'm
And cover
assuming,
design and all that stuff.
wow, wow.
I mean,
So
I don't do
you,
my own art, but I do like the wrap. So when it comes to the back of the book, that's all I
right,
do with that. And yeah,
the formatting. I don't have those skills, so kudos to you.
software is a great help.
That's true, right. What do you have on the horizon next?
Well, Shadowpaw Press has, let's see, I've still got 4 books to come this year. So I slowed all the way down to 10 books this year after doing 20 last year. Next year, I hope to be down to about 4, which I think is about as many as I can maintain. But I'm publishing a book of poetry by Glenn Sorstad, who was the first provincial poet laureate in Canada. He was the first poet laureate of Saskatchewan. He's one of Canada's best known and best loved poets. So I even publish poetry. Even though every time I do, I remember the famous quote by Robert A. Heinlein, which is that poets who read their work in public may have other nasty habits, which I often tell that to poets, and I think it's funny. I'm not sure they do, but anyway. And then there's a collection of literary short fiction called Elephants in the Room by a Calgary author coming out. And then I also do have a reprint of my own. So the next thing I'll have out is a reprint of a fantasy novel called Magebane, which was written as Lee Arthur Chane. And it was published by DAW Books. And some of those books I now have the rights back, and I'm bringing out in new editions. It's actually the longest book I've ever written. It's 150,000 words, and it's a standalone fantasy, that rarest of all things.
Yeah, that is.
Although I did plan a sequel, but it doesn't need a sequel. So that'll be coming out in the fall as well. And then next year I've got another literary, well, it's really a murder mystery set in the Old West in Saskatchewan. We didn't really have the Old West, but 19th century Saskatchewan, and called The Laundryman by Dwayne Brenna, and who's a Saskatchewan author. And then I have a book, a romantasy by Jenna Green, who's in Lethbridge, an Alberta author, and it's called it was called Wandering Bark, which is a Shakespeare reference, but we changed the title to Broken Realm because the salespeople said Wandering Bark sounds like a picture book about a lost dog. So it's a direct Shakespeare quote, but unless you knew the poem that it was from, it wouldn't really work. So now it's called Broken Realm.
Broken Realm is definitely a better romantasy title.
Yeah, I think so. And then I have last year I published The Downloaded by Robert J. Sawyer, his latest novel, which was my best-selling book ever because it's Robert J. Sawyer, Canada's best-known science fiction writer. And the sequel to that will be coming out from Coteau Press in the spring as well. So I've got those 3 things, and then I'm not sure what the fall will bring. Like I said, next year I really am going way down, mainly because I want to do more of my own writing. And I'm working on a new novel now, which I don't intend to publish. I have a publisher interested in it, so I'm hoping that they'll take it when I finish it, called The Fifth Magic. I should finish the first draft this month, by the end of the month, I hope, and early next month, and then hopefully I can submit it in October, somewhere along in there after I've done it. It's going to need an extensive rewrite, but I think I can get there. And then I have so many other books that I want to write that one reason I want to pull back on the publishing side is so I can do what I really want to do, which is write.
I was going to say, yeah, sometimes these businesses grow out of what we really love, and we get a little bit further away from being able to do that.
Yeah, because it all started with I wanted to put out, and I was just going to self-publish this collection of my short fiction called Paths to the Stars. It took me 40 years to have enough short stories to put into a book because I don't write a lot of short stories. And then I also had my grandfather-in-law's First World War memoirs called One Lucky Devil, which had been here. This is his house we live in. There's still books back there that belong to him. And I'd found these memoirs. He typed them up late in life. He died in about 1978, I think. And I'd put them online, and then I thought, well, there's a book there, and I wanted to bring that out. So I had these 2 books, and I was just going to self-publish them. And then I talked to a local publisher who said, no, you should start a publishing company. And as I keep saying, I haven't thanked her properly for that yet. So that's how I got started. And then it was, as I said, I'd put out a few of my own books that had come back to me and needed new editions because their publishers had gone under it. I have metaphorically killed a number of publishers that published me and then went out of business. I don't think it's my fault, but
yeah, I can't imagine that.
And then along the way, I started doing the anthology. Like the first anthology came along, and so all of a sudden I was publishing, people like John Scalzi and Joe Haldeman were in that book, and David Brin, people at that level of writing. And then some other books came my way, and the next thing I knew, I was putting out all these books by other authors. I started doing some reprints, and that brought in some others. But I think 20 was too much last year, so I need to pull back just a little.
I can see that. So I was looking at your list of books on Goodreads, and you have quite a few series. One is The Song of the Sword. Is that the series is maybe it's about Excalibur. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that one actually was originally, the first book was published by a company called Lobster Press, which went under. before they published the second book, which had been written and had cover art and everything. But then they went under, and they were not very. They went under owing people money, and they were not very good about giving rights back. I actually had to get a lawyer involved to get my rights back for those books. But once I had those, I had always seen it as a 5-book series, and I was able to pitch that to Coteau Books here in Regina, and they took the whole series. I think it's the only time they ever did that, where they took a 5-book series up front. And I wrote them at the rate of one every 6 months for 2.5 years, and they all came out. And yes, they're this whole story begins. Oh, and then Coteau went under, and that's why they're now a Shadowpaw Press title. The story begins when the Lady of the Lake from King Arthur shows up in Wascana Lake, which is right over that way. Not very far. I could walk to it in about 5 minutes. And she tells this local girl that she now has the power of the Lady of the Lake if she will accept it, and that she and this boy, who just seems to happen to be there, but there's very little happenstance when it comes to magic and stuff like that. They have to go find the scattered shards of Excalibur from around the world before Merlin can. He's the bad guy in this series.
Oh.
And his modern day guise is Rex Major, which is like a Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk kind of computer guy. And that's how the book of each book finds them trying to track down a different shard. And sometimes they succeed, and sometimes Merlin gets it. And it's whoever has the majority when they find the 5th one that gains control of this. Merlin wants to use it to take over the world so he can invade his own realm of fairy, and the kids are trying to stop that. And she fortunately has magic that allows her to travel through water, which is how I get them all around the world. So
I was going to say, yeah, that's a lot of plane flights.
when they're like 14 or 15, it's hard for them to fly on their own too much. But
Right.
no, she can actually transport through fresh water, which means she can use the clouds. And rivers and streams and stuff like that. And so the first book is set here in Regina and in the Northwest Territories. And then the second one takes us to the south of France, among other places. And the third one is in New Zealand, is the main location. The fourth one is in the Caribbean. Fifth one takes us to Scotland, and then we end up back here in Saskatchewan for the climax. So I had a lot of fun researching those and writing them. And there's some excellent audiobooks of them as well that they may not be available at the moment, but I'll have them back up again sometime in the near future. So yeah, that's one of my favorite series, actually. I love that one.
That's what got me started in reading fantasy in the beginning. I read The Crystal Cave by Mary Stewart, yeah. So about Merlin, and then I couldn't get enough of reading King Arthur's legends, and
somewhere back there's a whole book of Arthur lore that I got when I was working. I didn't use much of it because, but I did use some of it. So the whole idea of Merlin getting trapped in a tree comes into it at one point, and there's a little bit of the family dynamics between one character and his sister, if you know of Arthur and his half sister and all that stuff. So it was a lot of fun to stick some of that in, but mainly it was just a great. I love like with Fireboy, I love fantasy stories that are set in the real world. And one of the great things about the Shards of Excalibur series was that it was set very much in real places. So yeah, I made up coffee shops and things like that. But as I always say in the second book, there's a scene set in a place called Bennett's Gas, which is in a little town called Chamberlain. If you're driving from Regina to Saskatoon, Chamberlain is this place where all of a sudden the 4-lane goes down to 2 lanes, and you have to crawl through this town, and there's gas stations and stuff. And I'm pretty sure it's the only fantasy novel that will ever be written that has a scene set in Bennett's Gas in Chamberlain, Saskatchewan.
They can put it on their wall. They're now famous.
They should. I did mention it to somebody once, and they kind of looked at me like, what are you talking about? So, oh well.
You have to stop and see them. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know that much about Excalibur. Obviously, read a lot of King Arthur books, but in my witches fantasy series, the Kingdom Journals, I have the Lance of Longinus that they have to find, and there's 3 different pieces of that, and it's an urban fantasy. They go all over the world finding these 3 different pieces that are hidden. And
classic quest structure to have
right.
These pieces of something broken, like this. Well, look, even Tolkien had the sword that was broken, right, and had to be put back together again. So
right. So yeah, and probably when I came up with that, I didn't even like, it was in the back of my head that that was like a theme of fantasy or like a often used trope, but I didn't even like consciously think that, right?
Well, it's a great way to get your characters having to do a lot of traveling and going to interesting places and fight interesting monsters in order to achieve their goals. So
Yeah.
it's just a very good MacGuffin, I guess is the is the word.
A launching off point for those
Yeah.
fantasies. So what other series are your favorites if you could pick another favorite series to talk about?
Well, that's the longest series, but I did a trilogy, the Shards of sorry, that's one we just talked about. Called the Masks of Aygrima is the overarching trilogy. That was under pseudonym E.C. Blake for DAW Books. And I really had fun with that one as well. And although it's not published as a YA novel, the character is a 15-year-old girl, main character. So it could have been a YA, but because DAW didn't have a YA line, they put it in the adult market. And so it was perhaps a little grittier than I might have done. Although what's in YA these days, I don't think there's anything there that would have been anybody would have blinked at to see in a YA book. So I really loved that one. And again, I always have the possibility of continuing a series. And although the trilogy is complete, it definitely the character ends up going somewhere else where you could start a whole new set of adventures. Even with the Shards of Excalibur, I have the tentative idea of if I carried that story on, how I could carry it on. It wouldn't be on Earth. It would take my kids from Earth into the realm of fairy. So it would be the two modern teenagers thrown into a fantastical world. But there's only so much time and so much writing I can do. But yeah, the Massive Agreement, that's really the only other. I've done like 2 book sets, but I haven't done anything more series like than that.
As you can tell, I love fairies. So if you want to talk fairies, sometimes I can talk fairies with you. So you just released Fireboy, and I'm sorry, and you can go back and tell me like what your next novel will be.
The next one, well, there's the reprint of Magebane, which comes
Okay,
out
right.
this fall. And then after that, we'll see. The one I'm writing, if a publisher wants it, it could still be a year or 2 before it comes out, of course. But I will then be going on to something else because again, I'm refocusing on writing, and I can write really fast. I mean, the 5th book in the Shards of Excalibur series was 60,000 words. I wrote it in 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
With very little editing after that because I knew exactly what was going to happen and it just kind of flowed out. The fastest I've ever written anything, Magebane, in fact, I spent a week at the Banff Center on a self-directed retreat. I wrote 50,000 words in the week I was in Banff. So I can write a really, really fast. But again, that's when I'm doing nothing else. And right now I'm doing all this other stuff. So I'm down to more like a couple of thousand words a day if I'm lucky, 3,000 on a good day kind of thing.
Right.
Which,
Well,
is still not too bad. That takes you to 100,000 words in a month or 2 if you keep it up. So that's what I want to do is, and and whether I publish it myself or look for a publisher, I do have the knowledge of how to publish stuff myself now. So one way or the other, I'm going to keep writing books.
fun. Do you have like a little notebook of all your ideas, or do you just have them in your head?
There are various Word documents especially because I've done, when I had an agent, and I've actually don't have him anymore, but I had presented him with a whole bunch of ideas. All those are sitting here on my hard drive. There's like 10 novels, some of which could easily be multi-book series, just waiting to be written if I ever get around to them. So there's no shortage of ideas. The shortage is always time and stick-to-itiveness.
Yeah, so that's been plaguing me recently. I'm like just having to take my own advice and just write every day, no matter what. So
yeah, it's yeah.
I finished the series, so that's part of it. I think when you finish something that big, I had a little lull. So
yeah, there's always a recharging period, I think.
definitely. Well, thank you so much, Edward, for being on. Tell everyone where we can find you and your books.
Oh, well, the books are everywhere. Any place you buy books, you should be able to find them. My website is edwardwillett.com. My main social media ones, I guess, I'm on X at eWillett, 2 T's on Willett, 2 L's, 2 T's. I'm on Facebook at edward.willett. I'm on Instagram at edwardwillettauthor, because I missed that whole memo about having the same handle on, because I did this so long ago that nobody had even suggested that yet. And then I'm on YouTube at Edward Willett. And on YouTube, you'll also find the podcast I was talking about, the Worldshapers. And it also has its own website, theworldshapers.com. What am I missing? Oh, and Shadowpaw Press is at shadowpawpress.com, and on Facebook at Shadowpaw Press, and on X at Shadowpaw Press, and on Instagram at Shadowpaw Press.
Okay, so I hope you have someone that organizes all your social media, because that's 3 different ones to take care of.
I just do it when I think of it, and I'm not convinced that it does the slightest thing as far as selling books, but yet at the same time, I can't say it doesn't. So you do it and hope for the best.
That's right. Well, thank you, and we will have you back when you publish your next book.
Yay. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Finding the Magic podcast. I'm your host, author and podcaster Tricia Copeland, and I love getting behind the scenes. If you like the podcast, make sure to subscribe and stop in each week to discover new authors and books. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep finding the magic.